I was there.
All right.
Right.
And we'll share whenever.
She did $2,600 a day. Today.
Where's the share? Oh, there.
No.
It was. I had said, okay. Updated.
Yeah.
I'll take that off.
Audio system, we had this, individual,
Gee, where is that?
my own little truck. And I.
Yeah, I think so.
One drive.
Here you go.
Place out, yeah.
The new system will get rid of those old trucks.
Rename them. Unmute themselves. Do you want them to unmute themselves?
So.
No.
All of my files are kind of left.
Yep, we're good.
And then also turns out I don't have it in the office. Not even powerful, I got nothing. Who set the computer for you? I pieced up the computer, what my boss was supposed to buy the licenses for. Another company. Nothing I can. Because that piece says. Yeah, we both thought there was no issue in the report on it.
Okay, there it is. Took a while.
Yeah, I thought it was a miracle after I put that in. So the city, we stay at one. License, we get more people, so we don't have just. Your supervisors are in, the supervisors have to order them for everything else, it's fine. So I'm paying for an IT installer. But she had. The laptop is, it's already done. And she paid her on it, but she has not done it. Yeah, they could, but they can't override our authority to do it. Oh. Yeah. She used to work in the courts. She left. We heard it hit the basement. Anyway, so there's nothing for me to do. I take full time. Oh, and that works, but you just can't get to your files. I can't get to my files. I can't open the spreadsheet. Oh, you know, I asked her about it. No. Yeah. Accident, sir. So. Yes. It's just that it's fun. They don't tell me anything about when.
All right, we're good to go.
I was working with a guy last week.
Okay.
Trying to get me one drive. And he tried all sorts of licenses and connector with. And I got crickets, nothing. He was like, oh, wait, it's a holiday. He doesn't have to work today. Yeah. So we went again. And hopefully, over here, the alley. Crackers, trash. That's all check it out. I don't know about. Oh. Oh. But you got it. Yeah, I did. I got on the Google machine. And I went to National Geographic. YouTube. Catch a smuggler, the 10 most. Racing its time, 2014, the 5 is, based on. 5. Indonesia, Thailand. Yeah. I remember working.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that.
How do we remember? We did it last time. Here.
This one is.
Are y'all
Both
co-hosts?
plants are the heaters 40 to 80 inside.
Are y'all co-hosts?
45, 80.
Nice. Annotate.
Get it up. So it's gonna be a challenge.
More. Here it is under more. Disable annotation.
More interest?
Good.
Well, there you are. I pulled in behind you about Las Vegas Trail. And I
I don't have my receipt.
Then you come up with 30. Yeah, he turned. I pulled up, I don't know where Dave's going. I don't know where those other guys are going. He doesn't look.
Very, very good.
All right.
We had almost 35 people in there.
Well, I lied. You lied.
I was also, called,
I just-
Talk for 10. It's,
From the
Facebook
Botanic Gardens.
And it's on YouTube. Number 4.
Okay, how do I get,
Online for like FOR and everything. I would like anything.
they did what?
They donated the mission.
I should do that.
That's not always gonna be, yeah, right. You can't use that excuse. Yes, I worked for there for 30 years. No, I'm retired, don't say. TRA on the website or CPWD site. So it's been a little query.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, that's. I had raised beds on the same side of my house.
I'm trying to be.
No, I just need,
They're charging us at always.
See the screen?
Big engineering. But they don't make stuff up. They don't decide they're gonna go buy that property. The US government says, we're gonna do it, and that you are our engineer, you are.
You can copy it if you want to, or you can just use the thumb drive. You know, how to operate the reservoirs, and we even have.
did you go?
We did, so, we always look at. You're here at the Palmer Drought Severity Index?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 1,000 years. Yeah, for our different reservoirs. Your Creek, Richard Chambers.
So you had climate reconstruction.
They got a tree. Yeah, so we run simulations on different policies. How much water to take out. And, it just, probably my license to get. I did it for like 2 years.
I could only imagine. I would love to see 1,000. I've always wondered if dry spell could encroach into New Mexico. God, that would have been the end of the south. Southwest.
Yeah, I don't remember. 2 extended droughts, maybe 15 or 100 years. And so. Typically, Brazil has versus.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a 400-year drought in the desert Southwest. The Indian tribes changed, and the whole civilization got wiped out. It had been, I was just trying to remember, but I want to say.
Yeah. I got some notes. So I can go back to it, because I'm a- Silver Frog, I got 2 Steve Silver Frogs. Yeah. I could send you their contact.
Yeah.
Still have it over there?
They have it at the water.
Yeah.
Any friends who contact
Yeah,
me?
you should do it. Go back,
If that's okay.
because I just got invited, I did this talk.
For the water district.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a new general manager. The old general manager was not an engineer. The new one is.
Can't believe he wouldn't be an engineer. His head is- Yeah.
He was a poet. Really, he managed it well, I thought. They got a lot of criticism. Another thing, I used a software that was developed by the University of Colorado. We were very, and it was so complicated. Basically, so the non school. So they understood all this, so they did studies for the software was originally developed in the Tennessee Valley. Yeah, and all of that water lines, TVA was like.
Yes, they did.
When are y'all really starting? I'm like, we're talking about Willis, I mean, unless we got too much. But, yeah, they do. They've been doing, they consulted a lot of work, just not for contracts.
Yeah.
But, they also, we need to know the evaluation of the work. If they got data from I used to download the database. They wrote a script using the satellite data for
Water temperature.
well, for evacuation. It was based on that data. It was based on radiation. It was based on solar temperature. It was based on wind current. It was based on density. They calculated. We ran these scripts.
Yeah.
Calculated
How much
evacuation.
water? So then we need a water sample, right? Because none of that, the satellite would give you water density?
Yes. Do you know anything about the state? It's more of a like
Yeah.
actually high in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can do that. They can climate. Yeah. My boss was like a really, my big boss, and my manager was pretty much too. So they were really.
Yeah. That's, you know, you need it for water, to manage water, especially on this scale.
Well, yeah, what we had to do, we had to figure out what. So evaporation, 85% of the water that this is 85% of that comes from the
Right.
so the city, just say 100 million gallons of Richmond in one day.
Go from Pembroke, or don't you split it? Isn't there a stop halfway?
If it, yeah, because it goes up 100, it goes up 300 feet,
Yeah.
and it comes up 100 miles.
Do you discharge, is there a discharge tank?
Yes, it's discharged into Arlington.
Okay.
To send water to like Arlington.
Right. So you can stage it to Arlington to then, right.
But the EVAP out of Richmond Chambers, if we come, say, 100 million gallons in the summer, the EVAP could be actually 75.
Off that lake?
Exactly. So that's very important to us. No, you can look at this data. They publish it online. Have you ever heard of where they'll take little balls and put them on lakes?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because the solar energy is so
Yeah. You know, there's some of them experimentation using those balls. Have you seen that? No,
Oh.
there's no way. Yeah, well, you know. I'm currently, as of today, Is that one of the ones you sent?
Everybody's, so our friends, we go eat Tex-Mex. and so now we're going
Yeah, it's a set.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I would love to do a couple of stories just right there. One on the evaporation, which is stunning. Yeah, stunning. And two on that climate history and how they reconstructed that too. That's really, it's really, because it's so local and it's probably the only one that's ever been done. I'm sure, right? Who else has 1,000 water or
You
weather
know,
history?
I want to get on it where they got the tree, I don't know where the tree ring.
But they had to harvest.
Yeah, we have fun simulations that vary, like, a wet version of that.
Is the drought record still the 50th?
So the worst reservoir we have, the one that's the problem, is to know how much. So it's in a totally different.
Absolutely.
It has to be, yeah, it has to be directed to see Eagle Mountain has to be kept absent for the pumps to get the water out. And then Eagle Mountain has to send water. Worth has to be, the water district has the contract with the city that they have to keep Worth at a certain elevation. So I call Bridgeport the sacrificial.
Right, so you take it.
And those were built in the 30s. Bridgeport came out working from the 30s as a system.
Yeah.
So that was, the knowledge that we had, and they're really designed in the 20s. We designed in the 20s because they were operational in the early 30s.
This lifespan about 8 years. Are they safe up?
Oh, I don't know. That was 1890 there. This is Jeff Ray.
Oh, yeah.
She's gonna talk about a real cool study.
That's what I didn't know if.
I've got it. No, I'll let you talk. I'll talk. Okay. Yeah, I just got it. Yeah, I know. So, this is a private institute that wants to look at record observations of plants.
Some of them may
It has to be climate, correct? To record the seeding, and the flowering,
the whole phase.
They want the time.
The timing, they're looking to see the climate change. The milkweed or not. And I have a guide information
So that's a citizen, science project. This is your phone, right? Did you choose your phone?
Yep, exactly.
you can do it in your backyard.
Yes. So many great products.
Do you know about iNaturalist?
Yes.
Have you talked to other naturalists, Jeff?
I talked to one in, actually attended a lecture in Congress. It was downtown. Oh, favorite teacher. No, it was.
Where's the major China? Oh, okay, from the state of Texas. Oh, Melissa Holden.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember,
She's good.
at the day we had a.
Yes. They had her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really. I got a lot of.
I did the simulations.
Oh, really? You did?
Get me out of here.
And then we have these questions.
Yes.
Yeah, we hired a consultant.
But she can run
To
out.
look at how much water goes there compared to. It's about 150 per person. And GPCD now. Is that right?
Not household.
That's
So I
right.
multiply that by four adults in a house.
I'm not sure. With that, you know what I did? So, well, I started it like they do. Because my shift I have an engineering, which was like.
How are you?
And I got to get it out. So when I did all this stuff, I was like a baby.
Yeah.
I got my license and a regular. Now I'm savvy.
Like my kid out there, it's kind of cold in there. When I start working, it's like
14,000.
How many people do we have on Zoom? We're in.
30 bucks. 2 of them.
So how many times did I send out the meeting announcement? Okay. Somebody said they couldn't find it. No, it was there. How many of y'all had trouble paying your dues online? No problem. No problem. Okay. All right, I was, somebody called me. She didn't have last email. Okay. Anybody have any announcements or problems or kudos? Not personal problems. What's that? Yeah, she's gonna ask. Scroll down. So the question is, how cold is it?
Looking it up.
Anybody remember Johnny Carson?
Yes.
What do you say? How hot is it? Was that his question? How hot is it? I have some corny jokes for you. 31.
6 o'clock is 32 degrees at DFW.
Do you get a lot of calls when it gets cold? Does the station get a lot of calls
No,
when it's cold or snowing or icy?
snow, yeah, snow and ice will do it.
Any chance of snow anywhere in the North Texas?
We're gonna have some flurries. That's about it.
When is that?
Tonight.
What part?
We'll probably see some flurries.
Here?
Yeah. Right, well, it's flurrying right now, it's just not reaching the ground. The dew point is -1. So it's like the driest air we've had in a year.
Very dry.
Yeah, extraordinary. So
Yeah, I have a running friend that said that it's not the humidity, it's the dew point.
Of course, yeah. Got to keep track of that.
It's not the humidity, it's the dew point.
Well, they're interrelated to the temperature, so.
Oh, they are, but the dew
Yeah.
point,
Well, the
so,
relative humidity.
so how does
is-
that
The
work?
dew point is, the dew point will never be higher than the actual temperature.
so the higher the dew point, the worse the heating effect is.
The higher the dew point, the more water is literally in the air. Relative humidity is how much it can hold, a percentage of. And it's an indication of the dew point. But the dew point's more accurate because it's not temperature related.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Because it's how
32
much-
degrees right now. The dew point could be 31. but
See, I always
it's
thought
minus
humidity was how much water was in the air.
It's usually expressed as a percentage. So the relative humidity right now, I'm sure, is like 8 or 9% of that. So, because there's no moisture.
But the dew point is a more accurate gauge. It's a finer scale.
Yeah, that's what we use
Okay,
as a meteorologist.
okay,
We're only interested in dew point.
okay. Gotcha.
Are you gonna do a little?
Okay, I have some corny jokes.
Okay.
And you know, in a meeting like this, we think things are funny. I used to teach Sunday school and I would tell corny jokes before each class. Okay, anybody care about the college playoff tonight? No. No, anybody? Nobody. Anybody gonna watch it? No. No? No? That's what I expect. Three people. Okay. I bet y'all know the answer to this, and speak up. Who is Frosty the Snowman's favorite ant? You know the answer?
Favorite ant?
Favorite ant. Who is Frosty the Snowman's favorite aunt or aunt? How do you say it? Nobody? Antarctica.
All because of you, Jeff, before we get you. Thank you very much.
Okay, does that mean his least favorite ant would be like antifreeze?
Yes.
You know, the real comedians laugh at their own jokes. What did the tree say after a long, cold winter? Burrow, that's a good one. I need to branch out. There you go. What a relief. Okay, what did the icy road say to the car? Hello, we're telling corny jokes. And if you guess the punchline, you get to pet freedom. What did the icy road say to the car? Want to go for a spin? What's the weatherman, Jeff's favorite food in winter?
Chili.
Huh? Chili. Oh, that's a good one. What's the expression? Chili today, hot tamales. Okay, the weatherman's favorite food is burritos.
Stay far down.
All right, sports. All right, Tina, come on up. And I bet the people at home can't hear.
It says bad joke.
All right.
That's a good one, that's nice.
Can they hear now?
Try it, yeah.
Can they hear on Zoom?
I don't know.
37.
Try.
Hear it on Zoom. Can they hear?
Can anyone hear me?
They can hear me. They can
On Zoom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yes, all right, yeah. All right, so I'll only take a few minutes and we can get on with the rest of the presentation, but we are going to start up that project, Time to Restore, that I brought to the new class and to a NIPSOT call and various people and an article in the November newsletter if you want to read more about it. But essentially, it's a phenology project that we're starting up in Texas this year. If you go to their webpage and you see all this stuff about New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, it's not because they're forgetting the great state of Texas. They just couldn't take us on the first year. And so now they're taking us on. And so it'll be statewide. We have a coordinator. His name is David Gwynn, and he is going to start with some training this Thursday evening at 7 p.m. It will be recorded. And I'll also be doing some follow-up training and also a planning call so that once we've got trained on how to use the app, which is called Nature's Notebook, and once we get all that and we get time to get set up, then we'll meet to kind of talk about, you know, who's going to do it in their backyard. Karen Harden is, and who all is going to do it at Molly Holler with, you know, Ann and Carol and everyone, and who's doing it at White Settlement, who's doing it at the Fort Worth Nature Center, that's me, and try to get our plans together around which species we think we'd like to start with. Again, this is supposed to be, it's a long-term project. So it's not one where you're going to get in your car every week and drive 20 minutes and look at a plant for 2 minutes and then drive back home. We're going to do it as in your backyard, or if there's some native plants near where you work and you can look at it once a week on your way in or out, or it's a place that you go to volunteer every single week, or you have peers, friends, other volunteers who can do it, so that if I can't look at that antelope horn milkweed at the nature center, I can ask Dave or Banjo or somebody to look at it for me and count. So the phenology project goes year round, much less time, of course, this time of year, really busy in the spring. So what they're trying to do is try to catch the timing by enough people putting in the timing of when does the plant first have initial bloom? When does it leaf? When does it flower? When does it have unripe fruit? When does it have ripe fruit? When is it dormant? And by doing that, they can kind of look at how things are changing with climate change. They're also working with Britt, who's got the history of all the climate, and then we get the new stuff. So there'll be a lot of comparisons researchers will be able to do. Xerces Society is actually specifically looking at the pollinators, while we're specifically looking at the nectar plants for the time to restore. So it doesn't have to be, but you can do more if you want. If you see a monarch and you want to put it in INAT, or you want to put it into Nature's Notebook, you certainly can. But we're going to be focused on nectar plants. So going to be this week, start our training, some follow-up planning calls. I'm available if you need like a short group, like say Molly Holler wants, you know, you guys want me to do train the trainer thing, I can do that kind of thing with you guys. So we're going to get it started off. So exciting. It's going to be real exciting, and lots of robust reporting, which is really cool. And I'll be able to pull data on who's doing what we're seeing, and it's going to be nice. All right. Any questions? Yes.
Could there be like too many people that want to look at the plants and their native plants in their yard?
Can there be too many people on INAT? No. No,
Okay.
The answer is no.
Okay.
The more data, the better.
Okay,
In
good.
fact, you know, I'll be doing some things in my yard and some at the nature center. Yes.
It's not like a question, I just wanted to add that on Wednesday at 11 a.m. there'll be an online Zoom conference around that of knowledge of.
Yes, yes,
And when somebody wants to get started.
right. And they're not the same project, but they'll all go all in tandem. I mean, when we collect the data, researchers gather that data and can use it. So that's what's important. I'm going to attend that as well. Thanks,
Then
Ellie.
we'll talk about how to add all the important information. in those
Correct.
sections, because it's not enough just to put a name on the picture and the date.
True. And see, and that's the little bit of difference of INAT and Nature's Notebook. Nature's Notebook is specifically set up to capture around the phases. Do you see new growth? Do you see leaves? How many leaves do you can estimate, you know, and you've got to know your plant. Does it have one flower on it, or is it one of those that has clusters of lots of flowers within one little stem. So yes, and all of that. So, and they'll also, they don't care if it's cold, if you're watering it versus the field, you'll designate that, which one's which, and that all of the data is good data. So,
Okay, thank you.
all
Thank you,
right.
Tina.
All right.
Great project. Okay, next, Donna and Chris Honkamp have moved to Mineral Wells, and they were taking care of several bluebird boxes down at Lake Benbrook, and they need someone to take over, and we're gonna try this. Let Donna talk. Donna, are you there?
Okay, yep, this is Donna. And we're looking for a couple of people to monitor bluebird boxes out at Holiday Park Campground out at Lake Benbrook. It's about an hour and a half to do the bird monitoring plus your drive time. So you would more than receive your 40 hours for the Master Naturalist program. And if anyone is interested, if you can send me an email with your information and a telephone number to contact you, because I'm sure you're going to have more questions if it is something someone's interested in. And just put in the subject line, you know, interested in monitoring bluebirds out at Lake Benbrook or something so that I'll know. Then I can get back with you and answer any other questions. But one that I know that everybody's going to want to know, it's about one time a week for at least 5 months. I usually start mid-February and I end mid-August. So it is definitely a time commitment.
Okay.
To
And
take
we'll
on.
send out, I'll send out a constant contact note with more details in it for everybody. Okay?
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I couldn't hear that.
She said which day.
What'd
of
she
the week.
say?
Doesn't matter. You pick the day that you want to go. Is it cold there?
Yeah, you pick the day. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
All right.
Okay. How do I get back to where I was? Okay. The next announcement, at Chandler Gardens out in Weatherford. How many people have been there? Okay. They're having a spruce up day on Saturday. The fourth Saturday of the month. What's the fourth Saturday of this month? 27th. To clean up the trail, weed, trim things. 25th. That's this Saturday. Okay. Okay. Now Teddy's going to announce our speaker. Oh, Carol has an announcement.
It's about, short and sweet. I want you. Sorry.
Okay. Everybody, as the membership director, just as a reminder, in order to be considered an active member of our chapter, you have to log at least 1 hour, and that could be either a VS or an AT hour, and pay your dues, the $25 dues. To be recertified, if you're qualified to recertify it, in order to get your pins and all that, even the milestone pins, you have to be in good standing, which means pay your dues and log hours, report your hours. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. Yes, our treasurer is here tonight. If you wanted to pay her, Deanne's here. Or you can go online to our website, that's ctmn.org, and there's a button that you pay your dues, and you can pay either with PayPal or a credit card. Any other questions? If you need to know your status, just give me a call. I'm in the newsletter, and thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just going to do his presentation.
Thank you guys for coming out. It looks like with Zoom too, we're over 60 people, so that's good. I didn't make the trek out here for just a few.
Oh, what'd you say?
if you look at the
I'll let you do
PowerPoint.
it. I'll let you add it.
Yeah. it's okay.
I won't touch it.
You're better at it than I am.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming out here. Thank you, Zoom people. Y'all are smart. You're cuddled up in your beds. And we've got a lot of brave people here. Almost filled the room, so good job. Jeff Ray, I met him years ago at my job at the rec center. So he's a big gym guy, and his entire family. His wife is an amazing chiropractor that finally fixed my tennis elbow. Yeah, it worked. She was the only person after a lot of people trying. And then 2 awesome boys that were always there. One is a future marine biologist, maybe.
Yeah.
And then another one, he had a lot of really cool TikToks in the Bering Sea. He was doing good. So he's finished now. Jeff is a senior meteorologist, CBS 11 and TXA 21. He also does Climate Connection series. It talks about environmental challenges that impact North Texas and then sustainable practices that we can do. And then also Weather on Wheels. He visits area schools. So any of the teachers, give him a call. They come and do science experiments and teach about weather. Thank you for coming out and welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Danny.
I never said that if I'll be your friend, but you have to come talk to my group. Let's get this thing started here.
It should be under view, isn't it?
Yeah. Up right there. I just need to put it on view.
Leave me alone.
Yes.
I like AI. It's under view.
It's under
There you go,
slideshow
there you go.
from beginning.
Great.
There we go.
Nice.
So I am Jeff Ray, Ray of Sunshine. I guess my mom should have named me Sonny. Anyway, I'm the senior meteorologist, which is the kind way of saying I'm the old guy there. I cover that area. Anyone recognize the outline? That'd be Connecticut. So DFW is the size of Connecticut with 8 million people in it. So anyone comes into New York, say, hey, I got a friend in Philadelphia. Why don't you go down and see him? It's the same as saying, hey, you're going to DFW. I got a friend in Weatherford or Royce City. Why don't you go see him? Same distance. You know, I mean, we kind of get lost in the scope and size of this metroplex, but it is now the 4th largest television market in America. And by 2050 is forecasted, by the way, to be the biggest city. That area in red, DFW has a bigger population than any of those states in blue. So put it in perspective. I'm going to talk a lot about climate and how it's changed here in the DFW area. We actually now have 125 years of daily records. The record keeping started in the federal building in downtown Fort Worth. We started doing hourly obs in 1909, which are great help in the climatology. It did move to the greater Southwest Airport, and then the DFW Airport, basically since the 50s. So it has moved about 3 times. Oh, how do I do that? Do you know?
Escape for a second.
Yeah, let's escape. If it will escape, I want to escape it.
I'm on a computer.
Yeah, let me get out of your way.
Huh.
It won't leave it, will it?
Nope, no one you can escape in it.
Crazy. Oh, don't turn it off, Jeff. I'm trying to think. There is the escape key isn't working, so it must be Shift Alt D, Shift Alt M. No, there is a keystroke that gets you out. There it is. There it is. There, we don't need to share it.
Okay, there you go.
Screen that one.
By the time we figure this out, it's gonna be really.
Boom, done. Figured out.
Okay.
Are they seeing it? Okay, good. We're very fortunate here that we have a very old climate record because, as you know, weather variation can be block to block, and what you need is a longitudinal study that goes back quite a ways to get a real handle on what's happening in a particular place. You got to have a long climate history if you're going to just put it in one place to try to represent a several county area like we're doing here. I can tell you kind of in the, I don't know how to get rid of that little black box. Let's see if I can slide it. There you go. In the overview of looking at the weather history here, our temperatures are certainly getting warmer. Our growing season is certainly getting longer. We're getting more extreme weather events. This is also what we're seeing across most of the United States and the globe. We're getting more intense heat waves here. We're getting more intense droughts. We're getting heavier precipitation events. We're getting more extreme flooding events as well. We're getting tropical systems that are strong enough to affect us even more than has been history. And we're getting larger hail and storms as well. And this all has to do with a real simple physics equation that the warmer the air is, the more moisture it holds. And the more moisture it holds, that is basically the fuel that powers thunderstorms, is the moisture in the air. So the storms are getting stronger. Everything is just getting, I guess the best way to say it is the strong are getting stronger. It's going to be a big weather event. It gets a little boost. It's like the weather on steroids. So now I have to make sure I'm on this to advance. As you know, we're now zone 8. Here, we're split between A and B. The minimum temperature of A is 10 to 15, B 15 to 20. Your plants should be able to survive if graded for 8A or 8B. 8B for where we're standing here. Of course, you know, we have, how many zones is that? There's a bunch of them, I guess, something like almost 20, but you guys know how to read that. I don't have to teach you that. But a couple of points about the new zone change I want you to keep in mind if you're buying plants for 8 is that as we break down the seasons, last century, this century, winter and fall haven't warmed as much as spring and summer. So this is since 2000, we've had 16 Decembers that were above average, only 5 below. In January, it's about a wash. In February, it's the only month that is like this of the 12. There's actually been more colder Februaries this century than warmer ones.
Coconut water?
Yes. Thank you, dear.
Okay, good. But anyway, there's also another very simple reason for that. The winters are getting warmer, they're bottling. Okay, there we go. It's kind of exciting. I've never really done it before. So remember, zone 8A is about 15 degrees. We're hitting that all the time. And it's all because of 1 month, February. We are getting these shots of extremely cold air, even while everything else is warming up. What was I telling you? One of the things, the changing weather patterns is getting more extreme, hotter hots, colder colds. And I've circled here the last 10 years or so when we get below 15 degrees. So if you bought an 8A plant, it's dead, right? It got below 15. So I would tell you to plant 7s still. I'm not sure 8s are the real story here because of the late winter cold outbreaks that we're getting. And I'll end here. So there's your advice. Good news for us, the growing season is definitely getting longer. It's getting longer all over the United States, but here it's about 20 days, which is nice. I'll go through all the numbers kind of quick. I've been looking at this database for about 10 years now. And I'll do by season to make it a little bit simpler. Let's talk about winter. Basically, winters are getting shorter. They are warmer, and they're also more extreme. You probably can have seen this yourself in your own backyard. The biggest thing that stands out in the records when you go back, this trend started mostly in the 80s, that the cold air that comes down doesn't stick around anymore. This has really been exaggerated over the last 10 years, but if you would go look from the 1800s, the 1890s actually, all the way up into the 1930s, it was basically cold here from middle December to usually sometime in later February. We literally just stayed cold. That does not happen anymore. We vacillate between spring and winter here all winter long. And the cold streaks are getting shorter. And this is a classic example. I mean, it is really cold out there tonight. It's been cold for the last 2 days. It's going to be cold again tomorrow. And by the time we get to the weekend, we're back into the 60s. I mean, it's up and down, up and down, up and down. We're getting fewer number of freezes as well. Before suddenly winter arrived here in January, we had 1 freeze at DFW this winter, 1. So that means if you went out and covered your tomato plants, you were still getting tomatoes in the first week of January. I was. So I like to refer to winter as kind of winter weirdy. The way the pattern has been shaping up here lately. December 21st of 2021, is a classic example of what, an extreme example, but an example of what winter's been doing here. The average temperature that December was 61.2 degrees. Normal is 48.1. So we had a December that was warmer than the average October. In fact, we had a December that would have been the 10th warmest November on record. That's how warm the December is. The second warmest December is 54 degrees. So that means that the difference is 7 degrees. All the other months, the difference between 1 and 2 is less than a degree. So it stands out in a remarkable way how warm that December was. And that was just a couple of years ago. This is where everybody glazes over. I start talking about standard deviations. Yes, engineering right there. Take any group of numbers and you can group them in frequency, right? And it's a way to organize the database is as you start looking at standard deviation, because what it should tell you is what are the odds of this happening again? And a December like that is a standard deviation +3, and climatological parallel, that's about a 1,000-year event. So we had a December that we shouldn't have had but once every 1,000 years. The 2 warmest winters have happened since we turned into this century. That was 16, 17, and 99 and 2000. And what I have here, this is a glimpse into my software. This is the top 20 warmest winters on record. Remember, we go back since 1899. And you can see I highlighted all the ones from this century and the frequency. And that's kind of what you'll see when you see the other examples in the presentation of this. Is that there's an overrepresentation of this century versus the previous 100 years before it. So we have a trend where the winters are certainly getting warmer. Spring, as you've noticed in your backyard, is starting earlier. Groundhog Day has always been my day where I start planting the spring greens. beet, spinach, kale, lettuces. And that's just turned out to be even better plan. You will have some good success because of weather trends to be able to have a good and successful spring crop here, because it's just getting warmer and warmer from early February on. If I take the last 3 springs, the warmest ones all have been in the top 20, but just the last 3 of the 20 warmest springs, DFW 12 have happened since the year 2000. Again, over representation of this century to the others. And then let's talk about summer, or as I like to refer to it, the gate of which all our plants must pass. Summer's getting hotter, and more disturbing as the nights are getting warmer. 2011, of course, was the hottest summer on record, which I definitely remember. That was my first year here. And we moved in an apartment that had this really nice shaded pool. And what I remember that summer is staring at my wife, who was staring at me from across the pool all summer long, wondering what I just moved our family into. She was from Missouri and had been through like 100-degree day, and we got 71 of them that summer. So by the way, the 3rd hottest summer ever was 23, and the 5th hottest was 22. Of the 20 hottest summers at DFW, 10 have happened since the year 2000. As you would guess, as summers are getting warmer, we're getting more 100-degree days. The previous century would get 16 a summer. Now we're getting 23 a summer. And what's interesting, as of the year before, not this year, not 24, but 23, where we had 26 days where it got 105 or hotter. Then this summer, 1. But anyway, if you take a look at since 2000, we are getting a higher percentage of really intense hot days. And if you don't think your plant can tell the difference between 100 and 105, let me tell you, 105 just seems to be, you start getting towards that number, things change in your backyard. At least they do in mine. So the days are getting hotter, but also they're getting more intense. We're getting hotter hots, colder colds. This is what kind of worries me more than anything, is the warm nights, because a native plant isn't used to nights that stay in the 80s, right? These native plants have been around for thousands and thousands of years. In the previous century, we get hardly any, and now we're getting a lot of them across the summer. Back in 2011, that hottest year ever, we had 55 nights where it never got below 80 degrees. And it has everything to do with the closing of the stoma on the leaf, that you need to have a certain threshold temperature by end of the day for the signal to plant to close the stoma, because it can only do it during photosynthesis. It can't do it once the sun is down. So if it gets caught open, it dries out. And let me tell you, if you get a plant in that cycle, I don't care how much you water it, the damage is being done inside the plant. You'll have a very difficult time trying to water to recover the plant. So I think this is going to get deadly even for some native plants if we continue these trends of very warm nights. It's very much an urban heat island effect, where the 8 million people are growing stuff inside the Metroplex. So I think you'll hear more about that over the next couple of years. The heat stress isn't from the day, it's from the night during the summer. These very warm nights where it's 84 degrees or above, like Key West, it's brand new to this century. In the previous 100 years, we get 1 a decade. Now we're getting 1 a year. And if you talk about an overnight low that's 85 degrees, we only had 1 in the previous century. That happened 1 night. And since 2011, we've had 19 of them. So let's talk about fall. If anyone can tell me when fall starts, I'd love to hear your opinion. I have no idea when fall starts anymore. I got so excited when I moved here that there were 3 growing seasons, your spring, your summer, your fall. You can rotate 3 crop cycles out. And the fall one, a lot of the planting is done late August, early September, and it's just too hot for those seedlings to survive. I've tried it now for about 4 years in a row. I didn't try it this last year. And I failed every time because it just got too hot. We're still getting near 100-degree days in October. So, and my little tiny plants were not making it. So, whereas the spring crop cycle is better, this one is worse. But of the top 10 warmest falls on record, 5 of the 6 have just happened in the last 19 years. So falls are certainly getting warmer. 2023 was the 10th warmest fall on record. It's interesting to note that of all the seasons, fall has changed the most. Fall is the warmest of all of them. Anyway, calendar year. I don't know if you've seen this before. It's Ed Hawkins' climate chart. That's 121 stripes. If the stripe is blue, that was a year of below normal temperatures. If it was white, it was close to neutral. If it was red, it was above. There's the Dust Bowl years. There's the drought of record for Tarrant Basin, 50s. Have you heard about the 50s drought was so intense here that the tree line that starts on the coast of the Carolinas and goes all the way across the deep south and ends in East Texas, the largest deciduous forest in the world, that western line retreated about 50 miles to the east in that drought right there, and it's never recovered. And then this is this century. So it's all piled up there at the end. If you look locally, the top 10 warmest years have occurred since 1998. All 10 are happened since then, and of the 25, you can't quite see that, but 14 of the 25 warmest years have happened since we got into this century. Another way to look at is the disparity between record highs and record lows. We've had, by a factor of 5 more record highs being reported than record lows here since 2000. So it's just becoming more common, this heat and record heat at that. So since 2011, we've had the warmest year, the warmest spring, warmest summer, warmest fall, warmest winter. That's all really just happened in the last 14 years. And this whole idea that the weather pattern keeps flipping from one intensity to another. In 2011 was the most single intense year of drought of record in Texas. That's saying something. Think of the 30s. But that was the most intense drought year ever, was 2011. And then you go forward 4 years, we had the wettest year ever across the state of Texas.
I have a question about 2015. Was that a new phenomenon? Because we had 2 hurricanes that actually affected that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had 2 tropical systems came in with rain.
And is that part of our changing pattern that they came farther inward?
Yeah, they're stronger and they're bigger.
Farther inward.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in a second because that's going to be a big factor in water management. Weather is getting more extreme. I'll just pull not the last 3 years, but 20, 21, 22, 23, 3 years in a row. So 21, we had the coldest 3 days in DFW history. You might remember those days. Got down to -2. We lost electricity. So on Valentine's Day, the high was 14 because Mother Nature loves to mock us. I want you to know on that day, the record low for Valentine's Day, the record low was 18. And we had a daytime high below the record low, which had never happened before. We had a high of 18 on the 17th in that cold spell. 6 days later, transpose it was 81. Did you know that after that incredible cold spell, we didn't get another freeze? That was it. That was it. We climbed out of that cold. It wasn't cold again. In 2022, we had no measurable rain from June to August, 67 days, a second longest streak. The average high of those days was 100.2. That's the second hottest run ever. And then how did that end? One extreme to another. Drought to deluge. On the 12th, 13th, we had our second biggest rain in our history, 9 inches of rain. I went live downtown Dallas there in the canyon, and there were cars in 12 feet of water.
Someone told me a drought always ends in a flood.
Yeah, from drought to deluge. And that's your classic example, was 22. In 2023, we had the third hottest, fourth driest summer. August was the second hottest month ever recorded. And it was the second hottest September ever. So that's just, we're just getting more and more extreme weather. And every year is producing something event like that. But we've had in this century, the most tornadoes in a year, most rainfall in a year, actually twice. In 2015, 2018 are our two wettest years ever. We've had our longest dry spell. That's how we started this century. We've had the most 100-degree days in a year. That was in the hottest year, 2011. Oddly enough, we've had our biggest 24-hour snowfall. That was in 2010 when it snowed over a foot. We had our earliest last freeze ever in 17. That was when the last freeze we had was the 8th of January, and we didn't get another freeze that year. The previous record, by the way, was early February. So we broke the record by almost a month. Again, a standard deviation point that's beyond a 3. So let's talk about the Gulf a little bit. Climatologically speaking, we're the northern coastal plain. We're not the southern plains. We're the northern coastal plain because our weather is still affected by the Gulf of Mexico. You get across the Red River, not so much, but we are. So that is the rain footprint of Harvey. The whole United States had gone 9 years without a direct strike from a major hurricane. Then came Harvey, it hit Texas. It went up to San Antonio, looped around, and came back out. The whole time it was a tropical storm. Never even weakened below a tropical storm. That shattered a record, by the way, of being a tropical storm over land by double. But that rain footprint, that is in areas of green and brighter into the yellows. That's what we get in a year, is what they got in 5 days. About the size of West Virginia. It's our costliest weather event, even that freeze, we think. But it was a $150 event. The biggest rain event in America happened from Harvey in a little channel town. It's actually a refinery called Nederland. It's just on the channel going up into downtown Beaumont. They got 60 inches of rain in 5 days. So the aerial extent of 20 inches was greater than West Virginia. The longest life of a named storm on landfall, 117 hours. The previous record was about 50. It was estimated to drop 19 trillion gallons of rain over Texas. We have Doppler radar now. We can look at the size of the raindrop, and what's really improved is an estimate of how much rain is falling from these storms. It used to be a wild guess and you had to use gauges, but now you can calculate it pretty closely now with just a few observations and the radar data. So that's a pretty good estimate, 19 trillion gallons. And if you're wondering what 19 trillion gallons is, I'll walk you through this because I had to do the math to try to understand it. Have you ever been on I-10 where you go across the Texas state line? Is that big flex? The sign says Beaumont 23 miles, El Paso 857, because that's so Texas, man. Take you all day to drive across. Can't do it in a day. So what I want you to imagine is that you're going to get on I-10 there at the Louisiana state line, drive across Texas, and on both sides of the interstate is 5 inches of standing water the whole way, because what fell from Harvey could cover the entire state in 5 inches of water. That's how much rain came out of Harvey. There's never been an event like it. Harvey was massive in size. And basically that loop that it did over Texas, it dropped all its rain on us. Well, I think as the storms are getting bigger, it's more likely that we get the rain from them. We've had tropical force winds from a storm here twice, mostly in our southern counties, but the storms are getting bigger and dropping more rain is really what's happening. Other than the other thing that's really remarkable, they're intensifying very quickly now, shockingly so over open water. So. Yes.
I heard there was a lot of speculation about them making a new category system. Would that ever be a possible like escalation for something like that?
I've heard those rumors that, I think what they're going to start classifying now is the anticipated impact from the water, since flooding kills more than wind from hurricanes. All you have to do is look at the Gulf of Mexico. I wonder how we got a Harvey. I'm sorry that I didn't get 2024's analysis yet, but this is in August of 23. This is the 80-year trend of the water temperature of the Gulf, and that's where it was in 23. And it, as far as I know, 24, actually you're looking at 24, 23 is just below it. 24 did end up to be the record warmest by about half a degree or so. So it's a pretty remarkable difference over the last 2 years in the Gulf of Mexico. It's really warmed up. And what's ironic is it's in this picture right here, that outline. Did you know that as far as total heat content, that's the warmest body of water on this planet is the Gulf of Mexico. It's got a closed gyre. It's closed. I know there's venting out for the Gulf Stream, but for the most part, it just circulates inside of it. So not only is it warm at the surface, it's warm really deep. And I'm talking about entire heat content. So if you go down 200 feet, the water's still really warm in the Gulf of Mexico. And all that heat in this big body of water makes it the highest heat content of any body of water in the world. So the Gulf of Mexico is warming up, and it's already very much a source of weather for us.
Here's a Zoom question.
Yeah.
Has there been a Harvey and Katrina comparison in terms of water?
Katrina moved a lot faster, and that was all the difference. Katrina was smaller too. Katrina's damage was done by wind, and of course the failure of the pumps in New Orleans, the failure of the dike system. 10 major hurricanes have struck the Gulf Coast since 2017. That same number of 10, you have to go back 70 years to get to 10. So this is just since 2017. So what's happening? And the strong is getting stronger. So a hurricane that might be a category 1 gets into this Gulf where it's incredibly warm, it ramps up, intensifies, and suddenly it's a major hurricane that comes on shore. Whereas 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have stayed a Cat 1, if not a tropical storm. But it's feeding off this warm water and becoming a Cat 3 or above, and then striking. So I anticipate this trend to continue. And what's more disturbing for Florida is that whereas the West Coast had always been kind of sheltered from hurricane activity in the previous century, now it's ground zero because of the Gulf water temperatures. So that's a complete shift in insurance, the way they write insurance in Florida. I want to talk to you just real quick about what I've done in my backyard to try to counter these trends, because I don't have the best advice, but I can tell you what I did. Because of the bigger rain events that we're getting, because the first time I planted my backyard in the spring, when I bought my house, I got a 3-inch rain in my backyard like 3 weeks later and drowned every plant I just put in. So I raised all my beds. They don't have to go up high, only about 8 inches. You just got to make sure the crown is above your water table and won't have standing water in your bed. And raised beds, I think, are going to be the way to go around here. And because of the hotter summers, I think you should all learn how to string shade cloth. I had most of my yard shaded last summer, and I would highly recommend that you start using shade cloth, because the intensity of the heat, that when it's 105, you're going to need that shade cloth so your plant thinks it's only like 95. instead of 105, because it will survive 95. A lot of them won't make it through 105. So I really think you should go to shade cloth. And if you haven't gone to drip irrigation, I'm just telling you, you're going to. You might as well do it now, because there's no way you can hand water your plants anymore. You're going to have to go to drip, and it's have to be under a bed of mulch, or you will have a water bill you can't stomach. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead. It's not getting any better. I highly recommend frost cloth, at least going into the winter, because these freezes going into winter are becoming more sporadic, coming later. There's been some winters where just a couple of nights of covering your plants, you're able to harvest way deep into the winter, because that hard freeze is coming later and later. And because of the warmer nights, this is, like I said, I think this is going to be a big problem down the road. But what I do is, when I look at the forecast and I see the overnight low is going to stay above 80, I don't water in the morning. I hand water at the end of the day. And that's when the sun is still out. I can still get evaporation. The photons still hitting the water droplets, still getting evaporational cooling is what I'm getting to. And I'm not watering the plant, of course. I'm watering the soil. And I'm watering around the plant. Sometimes I'm even watering the rock. It drives my wife crazy. But what I'm doing is I'm drawing the heat out as best I can. So the hope is that that garden bed overnight gets to 79, So I'm trying to take heat out of the garden at the end of the day, hand watering. This is the drainage system I put in. That's the house I bought. In the yard, the way it looked like, it was covered in grass. I don't have any grass in my backyard now, but it's all garden. So I had to put in a French drain on both sides in order to handle big rain events. My yard was pretty flat, is pretty flat. And I protect from the afternoon sun. The way I did it, I have a pergola in the middle of it that I built. And then on the edge, you can see one of the poles here. My entire backyard is corralled with hanging wire. So I use my pergola and that wire to position my shade cloth. So I can put it anywhere. And I do change it a little as the summer goes on because of summer sun angle. But most of the time I just hang them usually somewhere in early June, and they stay up till mid-September or so. And their sole purpose is to keep my plant beds cool. So none of my raised beds are in direct sunlight after about 3 o'clock. I also rest some beds in the summer too. Anyway, you can join me on Twitter and Facebook. I got into this business because I was in a tornado at 7, and it hit right on the other side of a ridge line from our house. Our carport was destroyed. I was in a neighbor's house across the street, and I remember the dad and the oldest son, who was a football player, keeping the door shut. The wind was trying to blow it open, and we were looking out the window, and everything you could imagine was flying by. It's still one of the worst tornadoes in Mount Clemens, Michigan history. In Michigan history, it killed 9 people, and it wiped out a farmhouse on the other side of that ridge behind my house, and there was a family in there, and it was the mother and 3 kids died. And one of those boys was the same age as my sister. And that was the first funeral I ever went to, was the mother and the children, but that boy. And I just remember, I'm 7 years old now at this funeral and looking at that tiny little casket, and I'm 7 years old. It kind of freaks me out. I was really in a state. And I didn't know what a tornado was, and they had to explain that to me later. And I didn't know there was even a career called meteorology, or that you could get on TV and warn about tornadoes. I didn't know any of that. But I tell you, I was 7 years old, and I was sitting in that church in that pew, and I said, I'm going to figure out a way to keep kids from dying from tornadoes. I made a promise to a 7-year-old, and 60 years later, I've kept that promise. That's what I do. That's what I do. I protect you. That's my job. You have to live with purpose in life. That's my purpose. Now, we only have severe weather like that maybe 20 days a year. So if 20 days a year, I need you to listen to me. I need you to trust me and listen to me. The other time, I'm just hair and teeth and I'm trying to give you something that you need to know. Then this showed up and now I have to be popular. Isn't it enough that it's just my mission to protect you?
So give us some tornado advice, because I think we all become kind of numb.
To tornadoes?
Well, tornado warning, big deal.
Yeah, don't do that. So the best thing, the best recommendation I can have for you is to buy an app. I use Radar Scope and it's expensive. It's like $13 or something, but it gives you the local radar and it can give you velocity is what you want to look at, because you can see the tornado in velocity. You should have one on your phone. You should be able to open up your phone, look at the radar and see where that tornado is. Because if it's anywhere near you, you need to find shelter. The odds of a tornado hitting your house are once every 5,000 years. There's a chance it might come into your neighborhood. There's a chance it could brush by you and do damage. But the odds of it hitting your house are just astronomically small. But yet, that's what happens, right? A tornado comes through and it hit a couple houses. If you're not prepared, it'll kill you. So you need to know where the tornado is. I mean, we're going to tell you the warning. We're going to track it on air. Just leave the television on, turn it up loud if you have to go into the safest room. But the safest room in your house is in my house, it's the pantry in the middle of the house. You don't want any windows. You want about 3 walls between you and the outside, but you don't want to try to figure this out when the tornado is approaching. You want to figure it out tomorrow at your house or tonight when you go home. What's the safest house? Safest place in my house. That's where you want to go. And that's all I'm asking you is just to have some good idea of your tornado safety and keep track of it, where it is in relationship to your house.
What's the name of that app again?
That's Radar Scope. Yeah. It's the best one. That's why they probably charge the most for it. But there's actually on-air meteorologists who have license to show it on air because they use it. And one of them is one of the most famous local meteorologists on this planet uses Radar Scope on air. As you might have heard, 2023 and 2024 were the warmest years on record globally. But the 10 most recent years are also the 10 warmest on record. And we've also hit 1.5 degrees centigrade average temperature above pre-industrial norm. So we were warned not to hit 1.5. But I'm going to tell you that politically, we're not doing much about it. In fact, we broke the record for greenhouse gases last year, 2024. We never emitted so much. So we haven't slowed down. I do believe that we'll probably hit 3.0. And that is, the little climate modeling that can maybe simulate what that means. It's really bad news.
What would that mean?
It's probably going to happen twice as quick as what they're saying, because we were supposed to go to 1.5 sometime in the early 30s, and it's happened now. So we'll probably be at 3.0 in the 30s. I'll probably be dead by the time we really reap the sow. We sow the reap of however that saying is of what's going to happen. But let me tell you, it's going to be impactful. It already is, as you know. It's already impactful. So think about just double it. That's kind of where we're heading. I'm sorry to bring bad news. I honestly wish I didn't know what I know. There's all sorts of signs across the globe. Ice is shrinking at a rapid rate. And the CO2 continues to climb. It's at 416 parts per million now. And you can see what's happened. We have a pretty old record based on seafloor sediment. Goes back 80,000. So there's two things: seafloor sediment and ice cores. The Volstech ice cores go back 400,000 years. And you can see the cycling that has been going on for for a long time. And then suddenly this happened. And that's us, that's what we did. And we know there's a pretty tight connection between temperature and carbon dioxide. We see it in the historical record. And you can see how it's been climbing along with the temperature. We've actually released more CO2, more carbon into the air than the known biosphere on the planet. We've actually released that much carbon back. So we're going to have to deal with this, and you're going to have to deal with how it's changing in your backyard. And I do highly recommend the few things I've done, I think you should do as well, because I think 10 years from now, you'll be glad that you got a leg up on this. You got ahead of it a little bit, because I really do recommend that you do. And, if we're going to solve this problem, we're going to solve it politically. I don't think we took a big step forward today to solving the problem. I think Patrick Henry was right that when we stand together, we're pretty amazing. Think of World War II when we fought that war. We basically won the World War. We did, Americans, because we all banded together and decided we're going to build everything, and 12% of us went and joined the army, or military forces. And so we're pretty impressive when we unite, but when we're divided, not so much. I think Matthew said it right. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. So I think united we stand is kind of the way to go here. Yes.
Can you address sea currents? They talk about reversing of sea currents and some of the.
Yes, the slowing of the Atlantic Meridian. It's basically the Gulf Stream that goes by Greenland. The melt coming off Greenland, fresh water, will choke off the current. That happened before, by the way, about 160,000 years ago. And Europe went into an ice age. So we know it happens in these cycles, because the planet is, at one point, it was a tropical forest inside the Arctic equator and a circle, and at one point the entire planet except at the equator was covered in ice. We've gone through some really big cycles, but that one would be really bad news for Europe. If we shut off the Gulf of Mexico and you look on a map, you can see that all of Europe is basically where Canada is. So they get very cold, and that will be problematic for them, to say the least. It all has to do with freshwater melt. If it continues to accelerate like we've been seeing it, then it'll almost certainly shut off the flow. There was another question. Yes.
I'm not sure I can tell exactly what I read, but the melting, I read that the melting ice, the warming of the North Pole area has caused the jet stream to be weaker. Is that what it was?
Polar vortexes are becoming more or stronger. Is that correct?
It's become more unpredictable. So it's what's happening. So yeah, it's weaker. Of all the places in the planet, that's the place that's warmed the most. It's real simple to understand. What's the difference between 33 and 31? If it's 31, it's still ice and it's white. At 33, it melts, and now it's either water or land, and it absorbs sun instead of reflecting it. So a difference of 1 degree is a huge difference in the solar budget. So up in the Arctic Circle, it's been warming faster, about 4 degrees faster than everywhere else. And one of the ramifications of that is that the polar vortex normally would entrench itself in the winter. It'd be so strong, you couldn't budget. It would just sit there and swirl. But it's weaker now, and it's more prone to break free. We've changed the atmosphere, but we haven't changed the sun angle. So we still have the Arctic Circle dark for 6 months. So it gets really cold up there. And even though it supposedly is warmer, and it is, it's still incredibly cold. And we get that cold air spilling in to North America. As you know, between us and the Canadian border is barbed wire, it's just flat. So it just comes in. So that is one of the factors that's coming into why February is, we're getting colder Februarys, why all the other months are warming up. It has a lot to do with the polar vortex too. So, yeah, Mr. Grimm, sorry. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, a lot of it, they were kind of going back and forth with aquifer, but, the only really question is really about, I guess, what should we do to adapt? Or what are the best things?
Yeah, adaptation. Well, I gave you some hints in your backyard. I would highly recommend that United We Stand thing. You know, I really think we need to come together on this.
What do you do? I mean, everybody seems to be in denial about all this. I mean, you
Yeah.
have great stats there that's proving it.
Well,
I can walk out here right now and talk to, oh, that's not true.
yeah, I get that too.
Denial is a wonderful thing, but this is not wonderful.
Yeah, I get that too. I mean, I take this talk out
Yeah.
in our western counties. So reality has the final say. It always does. The truth always comes to the surface. And the truth is the planet's warming. And you can deny it all you want. But sooner or later, you're going to look out in your backyard and go, man, this ain't right. Yeah. Or you're driving around and you see, wait a minute, these trees, my whole life, these trees were here. Or what happened to them? So it is inevitable that most people are going to realize. And it's really been quite the turn of the last maybe 5 years in public polling. Most people are now coming to accept the fact the planet's warming and we did it, which even 10 years ago was most people didn't. So we are kind of coming around. I think the last thing to change will be the political response. Because I don't want to get too political here, but I do fear that our political policy is being captured by money, and that's going to slow the wheels of change. Yes.
We see a lot of post oaks in the parks and stuff. Some of the big ones. You don't see any new stuff coming in. Is that primarily because of the climate change and the climate we're having to deal with? Post oaks just can't do that.
Yeah, the Texas Tree Foundation is studying that, and the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. What is that tree going to be standing in 30 years from now? So they have a list. I have it in my pocket. I carry it with me. They also have trouble, I think, for reasons exterior to what they're seeing, of coming out and saying what trees to plant. And they have a list of what they're planting right now. And that's the one I go by because I'm going to judge them by what they do, not what they say. And what they do is they plant bur oak, cedar elm, Chinook, how do you say it? Chickapin. Common persimmon, live oak, Mexican buckeye, Mexican plum, Monterey oak, pecan, Texas mountain laurel, and Texas red oak.
We can tell you're from Michigan.
Yeah.
You know,
I know.
like it.
Pecan. Actually, I was born in Lubbock, but my dad was in the Air Force and we moved around a lot. I even went to the University of Texas. Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
It's just not gonna, you're not gonna wash it out. Sorry. Thank you. Though, of those trees, I wouldn't plant a red oak because of oak wilt. And go to River Oaks. Just go to River Oaks, talk to anyone who lives there and ask them what happened. Why are all these stumps in your yard? And they're going to say, well, those were 150-year-old red oaks and they died in 6 weeks.
We've lost some in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
I live around here.
I mean, when oak wilt gets them, they're gone. And it is,
Very sad.
it's devastating to watch a 100-year-old tree die that fast. So I wouldn't plant a red oak. Guys, thank you. And if you have any more questions, please email me. I'll be glad to answer whatever questions you throw my way, best of my ability. Okay. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I can figure out twice. I can get out of this thing. There it is.
Thank you.